Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today we're going to be looking at Exodus chapters 5, 6, and maybe 7 if we have enough time in the next 30 minutes. Exodus 5, 23 verses. Verse 1 says, "Send my people away," versus "let my people go." So "let my people go" sounds permanent. "Send my people away" sounds like a temporary leave. I want to mention this because this is found throughout the narrative of the book of Exodus. This is going to be a continuing difference, so I'm not going to mention it anymore from this point forward. Verse 3, called us to meet him. This is, they say to him, okay, the God of Hebrews has called us to him. Let me just read the context just to get a better understanding of this. Okay, so it is referring to Moshe and Aaron. They're saying to Pharaoh, the God of the Hebrews, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has called us to him. He's invited us to go and worship, to sacrifice to him. That's what they're telling Pharaoh. In the Masoretic, it says, not that he called us, but he has met with us. Now, we know that he hasn't technically met with them and will not meet them until Exodus 20, where he descends or appears in the form of that smoke and fire and earthquakes and lightning, all those, the sounds, the trumpets, and Exodus 20. So that doesn't happen yet. That is a mistranslation there. For the Masoretic, verse 5, you see here the people. Pharaoh talking about the people of Israel is very numerous. That's who he's specifically referring to. The Masoretic says the people of the land. That could be talking about the land of Egypt, not talking specifically about Israel per se. Again, verse 5, we see a major difference here. The second half of the verse says, "Let us not then give them rest from their work." Let us not. We will not give them rest from their work. What does the Masoretic say? Well, it says here, the people of the land, specifically Israel, I think that's what they're referring to, and you make them rest from their burdens. What? That does not compute at all. It does not equate. One is saying, do not give them rest from their work, these Israelite slaves. The Masoretic is saying, okay, look, there's a lot of them. Let them rest from their burdens. Again, major difference. Just like Satan in the Garden of Eden, you shall not surely die. It takes a little word, 3-letter word, not, to make a huge difference. And that's why I call this a major difference. Verse 7, yesterday and the third day. So it says here, you shall not bring them straw anymore to help them make brick, as yesterday and the third day. I'm not sure what the third day means. Perhaps they count the days of the week as such, day 1, day 2, day 3, so on till the 7th day, because there are 7 days in a week in every culture, human civilization. So perhaps it was the 5th day, and they said, don't bring them straw just like you did yesterday, which is the 4th day, and the 3rd day. That's one way to interpret it. Let's look at the Septuagint, or the Masoretic. Excuse me. It says here, heretofore. What does that even mean, heretofore? Let me look that up for you. All right, so the word heretofore, according to Merriam-Webster, means up to this time. Up to this time. So essentially he's saying here in verse 7, you will not bring the Israelites, the people, straw to make brick as you did up to this time. So from henceforward, from this point forward, you will not do that anymore. So it's a little different in terms of the specific time given. Verse 9, grievous. Let the works of them be made grievous versus more work. Let more work be laid upon the men. So work doesn't necessarily mean grievous, but Septuagint, it is grievous. It is an affliction. Verse 10, hastened. He hastened them. The taskmasters, and the accountants hastened them. Verses, they doesn't say that at all. Actually, it was omitted completely. Or you could say they went out. I guess that's another way to put it. So I'll say verses went out. Could be another way that they interpreted that word. So you can see the sense of urgency in the Septuagint. They were rushing them and said, we're going to enforce this right away. We're not going to delay. Versus in the Masoretic, it's saying that, well, there wasn't really a sense of urgency. They just told them. It doesn't give you that sense of urgency that they hastened to carry out this decree of Pharaoh, this new command. We see in verse 15, accountants, the accountants of the children of Israel versus officers in the Masoretic. So we know in today's vernacular, accountants means financial. We know that's not what it means. These were probably people who oversaw them in terms of their work. They were probably placed there by the Egyptians, fellow Israelites who were kind of like foremen. They were looking as overseers to their fellow slaves, but they were given positions of authority, or they were simply authorities within the community of the people of Israel that were already established as authorities beforehand, not placed by the Egyptians. Verse 16 is the last verse of this chapter. It's a big difference. We see here, injure your people. You will injure your people. This is the Israelites talking to the Egyptians, or the accountants of the children of Israel, who were Israelites themselves. You're not helping them to make the brick, and your servants are being scourged. You're going to injure your people. Verses in verse 17 here, 16. But the fault is in your own people. Wow. Okay, this could mean one of two things. There is no straw given to your servants, the Israelites, and they say to us, make brick. And look, your servants are beaten, but the fault is in your own people. That seems to refer to the Egyptians. The Egyptians, it's your fault that we're going through this. This is your fault. I put it on you that we're being burdened. So I think that's what it's saying here. So we're going to look at Exodus chapter 6 next. Exodus chapter 6, 30 verses. In the verse 1, we see the Septuagint is talking about the freeing of the Israelite slaves, as attributed to Jehovah's power. He shall send them forth with a mighty hand, with a high arm. He will cast them out of his land, the land of Egypt, Pharaoh's land. Versus the Masoretic, it seems to refer to Pharaoh letting them go. For the strong hand shall he let them go. Talking about Pharaoh. Why is it attributing this to Pharaoh? That doesn't make sense to me. So there's so many big differences in this chapter. And now we're going to look at verse 3. The big difference being their Elohim. It says, this is Elohim talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Being their Elohim, I appear to them because I am their Elohim, but I did not manifest my name to them. But we see in the Masoretic, I appear to them by the name of El Shaddai, God Almighty. That is not what it is saying in the Septuagint at all. That was added. He didn't say by El Shaddai or by the name of El Shaddai. He just said, I'm their Elohim, but I didn't tell them my name. So why is it contradicting this? The verse is contradicting itself. Verse 5, the affliction with which the Egyptians enslaved them. So that's what it's saying here. In the Masoretic, it says something else. It says bondage. They keep in bondage. That's all it says. So one is saying they are in fact slaves. They're being afflicted on top of that. The Masoretic is simply saying they're kept in bondage. They're just, in prison. They're not being enslaved, in the verse of the Masoretic at least. And that's why they're groaning. But no, the groaning in the Septuagint is because they're being afflicted. They're being enslaved. Like, this is serious. They're really making life hard for them. If you actually look in the book of Jasher, if you explore this more, you read the full expanded narrative, it's saying that they didn't just not help them make bricks. They would actually punish the Israelites and say, okay, you didn't make enough brick today? We're going to kill your babies and make them the mortar for the brick. Very, very dark, very demonic. So disgusting what they did to them. So I think you can understand more clearly how heavy this was on the people, how much afflicted they were, how afflicted they were. Okay, with you was omitted in verse 5. I remember the covenant with you, my people Israel, but it says here, I remembered my covenant. So it's a little bit vague in that respect in the Masoretic. Looking at verse 6, tyranny, the tyranny of the Egyptians versus the burdens. So tyranny is a stronger word. High arm, here in verse 6, I will ransom you with a high arm. That seems to refer to verse 1. You see here talking about the mighty hand, a high arm will really cast them out of the land. That's Elohim's doing. Versus an outstretched arm in verse 6. I will redeem you with a stretched out arm. So that's not the same. Not a huge difference, but it is worded differently. Verse 9, faint-heartedness. Faint-heartedness. That's what the Israelites were feeling, versus anguish of spirit and cruel bondage. So you can see that not only did they didn't word hard tasks, but they called it cruel bondage. Not too different there. I'd say faint-heartedness is not the same as anguish of spirit, but they are negative. Verse 12, eloquent. Moshe is saying, I am not eloquent. It's one thing to be able to speak, but to be eloquent is another level of speaking ability. Masoretic is saying, uncircumcised lips. Not the same. Eloquent is very high, and uncircumcised lips could mean a speech impediment. I'm leaning towards a speech impediment. However, Moses is expressing he's not eloquent. Verse 13, the children of Israel was added here in the Masoretic. It says here, Moshe and Aaron gave them a charge to Pharaoh, a commandment that he should send the children of Israel. But it says here, no, Moses and Aaron, they gave a commandment to the children of Israel and the Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So not just to Pharaoh, but also to the children of Israel. Why would he have to command them to leave? They already want to leave. Verse 15, we see here a Zidonian and a Phoenician, or a Phoenician that's translated as such in the Greek. In the Masoretic, it is a Canaanitish woman, not Zidonian, not Phoenician. So that's interesting. Verse 20, the daughter of his father's brother. So Amram took Jochebed as his wife, the daughter of his father's brother. which is his uncle's daughter, which is his cousin. Amram married Jochebed. Jochebed was his cousin, ladies and gentlemen. What does the Masoretic say? Okay, let's look at that. His father's sister. He married his aunt in the Masoretic. This is illegal according to the Torah. You're not supposed to marry your aunt. You're not supposed to have sex with your aunt. So we already know that's false. This is not what the Bible originally said, because it will contradict itself. There's so many contradictions in the Masoretic text. It's unbelievable, folks. I'm very, very disappointed, but very much pleased that the Septuagint is revealing the truth, and these secrets are being revealed before our very eyes. Okay, verse 30. I'm trying to be emphatic about it because it's really like gold. This is gold we're finding. The most valuable text in the planet, the Holy Bible, and we're revealing these truths right now on this YouTube channel. Verse 30, Moses is saying, I am not able in speech. Him talking to God himself. I am not able in speech. Says pretty much the same kind of feeling in the Masoretic, uncircumcised lips. However, why I bring this up is because some extra canonical texts, they say that Moses was injured in his mouth and as a result had a speech impediment. Okay, that's all for chapter 6 of Exodus. We'll look at chapter 7. There's a quick one. So let's let that load. Okay, Exodus 7, 25 verses. Number 1 says Elohim, mighty one or God. So people say, is this a mighty man or is it an actual divine, Elohim? Is it a God? It says, I have made you a God to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother shall be your prophet. This is what the Septuagint is saying. So to Pharaoh, you'll be a God. Or is that a mighty one? Because it says Elohim as well in the Masoretic. So in this context, he is Elohim because he's a prophet. He is a prophet, but a prophet also means a messenger. And even kings have messengers. Kings have messengers, and kings are mighty ones. And they have not only messengers, they have ambassadors to speak on their behalf. So both can apply, really. Again, we're to have no other Elohim before Yah. That's the first commandment. But maybe it could be worded, I've made you a mighty one. I've made you a king before Pharaoh. So you're like on an equal level. He's a king, you're a king. And you've got a prophet, you've got a messenger, you have an ambassador in the form of your brother Aaron. Verse 4, my armies was added here. It says here in the Masoretic, my armies. I'll bring forth my armies. So that was added. It wasn't there originally. With my power, with great vengeance. Okay, so it says here, he'll bring them out with my power out of Egypt with great vengeance. What does it say in the Masoretic? Great judgments. It doesn't say with his power, and it changes vengeance for judgments. Similar, but it takes his power out. And I found that's just a common thread, that not that it's taking all his power out, but when it diminishes his power, it is taking his power out in some ways, in a limited way. Verse 13, the heart was hardened. This is Pharaoh's heart. Versus he hardened Pharaoh's heart. So is it Yah doing this? Or is it Pharaoh hardening his own heart? We don't really know at this point. Verse 15, the word early in the morning, that early was omitted in the Masoretic. 18, shall not be able to. They shall not be able to drink the water from the river because it's blood now. Masoretic says they shall loathe to drink it. They're going to hate it. They're going to dislike drinking from it. So yeah, they'll be able to, but they won't like it. No, it says they won't be able to at all. They won't be able to. Not happening. Not a scenario. Verse 19, standing water was omitted. And the description says, over all the standing water was turned to blood. That's not there in the Masoretic. There was blood. So he put his hand over the waters, and it says there, and there was blood. And all the, like in Genesis chapter 1 says, God said, let there be light, and there was light. So this is a similar thing. Moshe putting his hand over the waters, and there was blood. Let's look at the Masoretic. It says here, there may be blood. So there's not blood yet, but there may be. It's a chance. This is the overall narrative. Okay, the next verse is like a flashback, just like Genesis, where it says, God made them male and female. Then he rewinds in the next chapter to where, well, not really chapters, but the next section of text, because man divided the scriptures into chapters, they're man-made, and so are the verses. But it says where he put Adam in a trance and he took the rib out. So that is a flashback as well, just like this is. And the last verse going to look at before we close this video, verse 23, it says, nor did he fix his attention even on this thing. So Pharaoh just didn't fix his attention, didn't catch his attention, the blood, water turning to blood. Verses, neither did he set his heart to this. Okay, so that's not a huge difference, just a minor difference of wording it. Thank you very much for your time. Jehovah bless you and make your way prosperous. This is Jack Knight signing off for Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Shalom.